Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Aish podcast. My name is Shalvie Friedman, and I'm very excited to have two incredible guest speakers on the podcast today. It's a fascinating thing. When you Google Judaism and mysticism, you get so much fascinating content. In fact, almost all the O's of Google link you up to something enlightening, something optimistic. When you Google Judaism and veganism, you get a whole bunch of interesting, articles. But when you Google Judaism and women, you seem to come across one offensive article after the other, talking about the patriarchy and women's oppression and people throwing stones. And it's really challenging in the 21st century for a woman to find real high-level content to educate herself about what Judaism has to say about women and what Judaism has to say about her own gender and her own mitzvah observance. Today we're going to be meeting two very passionate women who are currently in Jerusalem, who have started a website called Deracheha, where they are addressing women in Jewish law in a fascinating way. Laurie, Novick, the director, and the head of media, Leshaw, are here with us today.
Thank you so much, Shalvie, for having us here today. Deracheha is really a project that came out of my experience working as a teacher and yoetzet halacha, exactly to meet the need that you're describing here. Women would come across sources, articles, discussions that, frankly, would often be hurtful, or at the least would not seem to be written really with the woman in mind. Women would kind of be like off stage, but not necessarily the subject of the article, even though ostensibly women were the subject of what you'd see. And that was really the idea, to make a site where it's from a woman's perspective, taking into account how a woman might be thinking or feeling or interested in knowing about different halachic issues that pertain to her, and developing those materials. And not just doing it on my own, but doing it with a team of women who can work together to, as much as possible, bring in a wide range of perspectives to really enrich women's understanding of what halacha has to say to them.
And the women that we're talking about, the voice of the woman on the site, isn't an apologetic woman who takes whatever she's heard and spits it back out. It's a questioning woman who asks, what is my Judaism like in the 21st century? And let me look at the sources in their original and analyze them with new eyes, but in the tradition of, our rabbinic texts spanning back centuries. So that's a balance that we've worked really, really hard to create on the site. And I think it's something that's entirely unique to Deracheha. You don't see it in other places.
So to understand, is your website something which is halachic sources, as in the laws of Jewish women, or is it philosophical in content in terms of understanding how to approach these laws?
Exciting innovations of the site is that we found, I think, a really great way to do both. We have, when you go into a content area, we have different tabs. So if someone just wants a brief overview of an issue, she can just read something really quickly, question and answer, brief, easy to digest. And if she wants something deeper, there's a full-fledged article. She just wants to look at sources. The sources are there, translated, their own tab. And if she wants to have more of a philosophical discussion, there's a tab that deals with that too. So there's really a lot of different points of access to this material for different women who might be looking for different things at different times.
So when you talk about different women looking for different things at different times, one of the unique natures of halacha, of Jewish law, is that Jewish law is applicable to different people in different contexts. So we know, nobody's a finished product, and people are working towards things. People belong in different communities. People belong in different life stages, and as such, Jewish law kind of speaks to different people in different ways. So how then can a website is kind of like a one-size-fits-all kind of interface where you just look stuff up and it gives you pretty much a straightforward answer? How do you create that flexibility of, one of the things about Jewish law is called the oral Torah, because it's meant to be something which is oral and dynamic and speaking to different people, different audiences. How do you take that sort of model and put that into a website, internet, black and white on a screen model?
One of the things that I think we've done a pretty good job of, but we're always building on it, is to take both the texts that have been written and the texts that say this is what you should do, but also to balance that out with recognizing the traditions of how women have behaved over the centuries, and also to find those sources that explicitly relate to that. For example, we have a section on tefillah, and tefillah is something that's challenging for people.
So tefillah, can you translate?
Yes. Finding time for prayer every day, multiple times a day, is that something that's doable for women? And finding sources from our tradition that acknowledge the different ways that women incorporate prayer into their days was something that was really important, to find the sources that say women have behaved differently at different times in their lives, at different places around the world, and trying to show how that sort of has expanded beyond what you might expect from a halachic law-based kind of site.
Wow. Yeah.
What we're trying to do is to broaden the way women think about halacha, that it's not just a bottom line answer, but there are really a range of ideas that find expression in halacha, and that there's really room for everybody. It's a matter of looking closely enough and finding where you can fit. So that's a really exciting part of our project, is trying to figure out how to make these different questions accessible to a wide range of women.
Right. One of the things that I noticed perusing your website is that you bring a lot of women speaking about different things. One of the natures of Jewish texts is that they are predominantly written by men. Or speak about men, written by men talking about. So when we come to women in Jewish law, how was that experience of finding female content?
It's an ongoing experience. It's exciting and exhilarating when we find things, because the authentic woman's voice of telling us or taking us into her own religious world is just fascinating. It's great to see. It's inspiring. What's a challenge is that there really isn't as much of that out there for us to access as we'd like there to be. So it becomes really difficult sometimes to find those voices that are so important to us.
Are you talking about, the times of the Talmud, or are you talking about present day?
Both. Rachel, you want to expand?
Well, one of the things I was going to say was that something we've done that I haven't seen done in other places is finding texts written by women in the pre-modern era that speak to the modern era. So, for example, one of my favorite sources on the site is Laurie found this prayer written in Ladino, Judeo-Spanish, that was said by women when they lit Shabbat candles in, I believe, maybe the 1500s, a very long time ago, a very old source. The kind of thing that just usually gets lost to, academics who study people from that century, and it's not something that often speaks to women today. So finding a way to give voice to the behaviors of our foremothers across Jewish history is very cool. And then being able to find women scholars of today who are writing, and knowing that our site is providing a mouthpiece for Rabbanit Chana Henkin from Nishmat and Rabbanit Malka Bina from Matan, and all sorts of women who are actually at the forefront of encouraging halachic writing by women, but aren't necessarily reaching huge audiences because we're still very much at the beginning of that process. So we get to be a part of that process for them.
And just to fill in a little background on that, when I was looking I knew that I couldn't write about candlelighting without bringing one of the many tefillot that women have recited over generations about it. What was so exciting to me about the particular one that we brought was the way in which, on the one hand, it was completely accessible. I think any woman of today could relate to it. And
what kind of things were these women praying for?
So that's what's so exciting, is that in general you have these ideas about the light that the woman is lighting being able to have greater implications for lighting up the world than just at that moment. In this particular tefillah, themes that we develop in our article, or that you see in halachic sources, about candles bringing peace to the home, about them adding to the pleasure of Shabbat, also find expression. And that's what I'm so excited to show, that from the past till our day, this connection between experience and text in women's lives is very rich and very important.
Wow. And why do you think it is that it's so hard to find these texts? Why, and I mean, in the past, there's two different questions. The one is, why is it so hard to find women writing, in medieval times or even before or after that? And the second question is, whatever the social or whatever it is norms which directed that in those days, pretty much don't exist today, meaning that glass ceiling is something which we have broken, and yet, as you're saying, we're still hard-pressed to find women who are writing about their Jewish experiences in a profound and meaningful way. So I get. Let's start with the second question. Why do you think today women are it's so hard to find women writing about their Jewish experiences?
I think there is a little bit of a fear in two ways. There's a fear of getting things wrong. Often women are not necessarily confident in their scholarship, or their areas of scholarship might not be as wide-ranging as many men that they know, and for that reason, they're afraid of putting something out there that might be criticized as incorrect. And I also think in general
Can I just interrupt for 1 second, just to say that women are still very, very much aware of the fact that anytime they write something or say something, it's viewed as something that reflects on women in general. A woman who writes an article that's criticized, unfortunately, is often criticized as, well, that's because she's a woman. She didn't say it correctly. Maybe she didn't have the right educational background. And because of that, I think there's a lot of hesitancy to put anything out that isn't 100% accurate, because I think that the reception is still critical and gender-based in a way that if a man puts something out that somebody disagrees with, they'll disagree vehemently. We're Jews. We disagree with each other. But you're unlikely to see them criticized based on their gender specifically. And as more and more women write, it becomes harder to criticize based on gender, and you lead to more criticism based on ideas, which I think we're very much open to. We just need to get to that point where women aren't afraid of being viewed first as a woman and second as their ideas.
Wow, yeah, as a woman who puts out content, that speaks to me.
I think there's also the element of recognition. For a woman to write something, she has to be confident that what she's writing is worth other people hearing about. And I think that's something that maybe our site can help foster, is a sense among women that their ideas about Torah matter. They're worth putting out there, and they can make a difference to other people.
Yes, I think other women are desperate to hear them.
And for so long, women weren't part of that conversation. We got very, very used to reading texts written by men and maybe responding personally, but not responding publicly because there wasn't an outlet for it. I think we've reached the point where women realize that their voice does matter, but they don't necessarily have the outlets for it. And our site is certainly meant to be that. Our site includes a question and answer section where people can write in questions that they have based on the articles. We're also really excited about our Facebook page, which is becoming a place for conversation about the issues that we're posting in our articles. We posted something just on Sunday, a technical detail about the laws of Pesach Sheni, which is the opportunity for people who didn't bring the Passover sacrifice to bring one again a month later. And we posted an interesting tidbit about it. And conversation started in a really deep way. Women who aren't necessarily involved in study all the time, but a question came up on Facebook and they started really engaging and interacting with sources. And that's something that we really think there's a lot of room for growth there, and we're really excited about that.
I think also what you spoke about, the outlet, is very important. Our project is in conjunction with Yeshivat Har Zion, with Beit Midrash Migdal Oz, and with the virtual Beit Midrash, which are all very important learning institutions in Israel. And what that means effectively is that these institutions for men, for women, over the internet of Torah, have gotten together and said, we want to help foster there being another outlet for women's Torah out there that's going to reach more women. And if more institutions like that had been prioritizing earlier on getting women's voices out there, I don't know if we'd be talking about this issue the way we are now.
Right. That's definitely true. this is probably not a politically correct thing to say. You can edit this out afterwards if you want. But I think, there's one of the hot issues today in the Orthodox world is that in the more Haredi communities, we have a lot of, stuff coming out like magazines and newspapers, which are removing pictures of women. And it's seen as, a very big crisis in terms of, this overemphasis on the laws of modesty, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, not necessarily a popular opinion, but I'm far less concerned about pictures of women because my children see women everywhere. I'm far more concerned about who's writing the content and that we are ensuring that we're having women writing high-level content in magazines, in newspapers, online, so my children my daughters have role models to look up to of women who are really engaging in and becoming part of the dialogue of Jewish thought and of Jewish texts.
We definitely think that the content that we're putting out is of that high caliber and is meeting that bar, so that we don't have people who come and say, oh, it's just a thing that some women wrote. Oh, it's just, for women. We really think that what we're writing deserves to be very much a part of that conversation and not sort of written off. So whether or not our pictures are there, although if you look on our site, you will see plenty of pictures of women, you can't help it. But you're right. I think that the words we're writing hopefully speak for themselves.
So I guess in one sentence, to me, when I look through your website, I feel like your website is really an invitation. It's an invitation to women all over the world to really become a part of the conversation of Jewish learning, to really engage with our own Jewish learning and recognize that each one of us has a voice and we have a space, and we have Jewish law is speaking to us, speaking to each one of us individually, and it's not something which just belongs behind closed doors in Aramaic somewhere that's inaccessible to today's young women.
The Torah is ours, and we need to take responsibility for that. And the best way to do that is through conversation and through study.
I definitely think you got it, Shalvie. I always worry, like when people come on the site, are they getting the point? You got the point. So to all the listeners out there, take this as a personal invitation to you. womenandmitzvot.org. We're there.
Women and Mitzvot. Sorry, can you say it to me? Women and Mitzvot.
Mitzvot.org. We're waiting for you. Join the conversation. Sign up for the newsletter. We have a podcast. We have a Facebook page. We're going to be everywhere that you are, so that you can find the path into halacha and into mitzvot that speaks to you, whether it's source-based, whether it's audio, whether it's conversation or images, whatever it is, we're going to be the place that you can come find it.
And we want your ideas and your voices to help us make that even better for you.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for your hours of making this website. I was so excited to send it out to my colleagues, send it out to my students, and I hope more people will do that. And we're looking forward to populating the website with more and more content that we can engage with and really create more and more dialogue for young women today. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to Deracheha for that exciting interview and the exciting work that they're doing. I feel as an educator, and I have many conversations with many young women about, the issue of Judaism and gender, women in Judaism, women in Jewish law. And one of the things which I feel incredibly passionately about is that, firstly, women need to know that they have a voice. But secondly, and I think more crucially, that in order to really have a voice, they need to have an educated voice. And often that's something which people find incredibly challenging, is to be educated when it feels like the content is so dense and so heavy and so inaccessible. And I'm so excited about Deracheha because I'm really looking forward to having conversations with young women who come to me questioning this law or this idea or this whatever it is. And I'll be able to say to them, learn up on it. Here's the website, here's the content, see the sources inside in their original form with translation. And then we can have a conversation. Because if we want more women to be able to engage in the dialogue of Jewish law and to ensure that the future of Jewish women in Orthodoxy is a vibrant, happening place, then we need to have more women who are educated, more women who understand Jewish law, and more women who are passionate about creating community and a sense of oneness. One of the things that Laurie did speak about, which really, again, resonated with me, is often when it comes to women and gender, it's such a place of conflict. right? It's one of those things that you try not to bring up too much at the Shabbos table because it gets people all worked up. And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be a place of empowerment. It can be talking about women in Orthodoxy should be a place of exciting and refreshing and really invigorating dialogue. And I'm really, really looking forward to having people access that and being able to come to the table and be part of Jewish education for young women. If there's something that you want us to be speaking about on this podcast or addressing on this podcast, please email us, let us know, so that we can continue to create content that speaks to you, for you. Thank you so much.